I think really what should differentiate you from your competitors is your system. You're not trying to sell your system to someone. You want them to buy whatever it is that you're selling. And if you can change the narrative so that you're not trying to sell yourself to them, instead they're buying it from you, I think we'll all close more opportunities.
Welcome to the Onsite Podcast. We chat with contractors, educators, industry professionals about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So without further ado, let's fucking get into it.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Onsite Podcast. Today, we are on part 5 of Contractor Control, and we have a few guests, some of the contractors that I've been coaching and that are a part of the Elite Builder Society. I did mention in the previous episode that we're going to try to, find a couple people that are comfortable sharing, some client objections or some challenges that they faced on site. And so I'm excited to dig into this today with a couple of the guys that we have today. A couple other guys are having some technical difficulties with their internet, which is totally fine. So we'll roll with this as we can. So there's going to be about 5 people in here today. It should be a great conversation, so stick around and get ready for some fun. So again, like I mentioned, the idea here is that we're going to, surface an existing story that these guys have experienced, and some of these experiences are going to be very similar to experiences that you've probably faced as well, where, a situation has arisen in the sale or in the estimating process where, you're struggling to figure out like what didn't go right, why didn't it go right, why didn't it go my way, and then maybe there are some things that you'll learn today that will help you deal with those similar situations. In no particular order, we're going to start with Andrew. So Andrew and I have been working together for almost a year and a half.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Almost a year and a half. So Andrew and I have been working together for almost a year and a half. He's in the Jersey Shore. He's not friends with any of those guys from the house, but that was part of our last conversation where we were chatting about those hammerheads. So no, it'll be a great conversation. I'm excited to this. So Andrew kind of challenged everyone prior to this to come up with something that they've experienced. And I'm curious, what story do you have that resonates with, a challenge that you faced with some client adversity or objections?
So one that's coming to mind, it was about a year and a half into business, and it was for 2 bathrooms, a full gut remodel in the same house. Mm-hmm. So I met with the client. I sent him over a quote for everything. He approved everything. He signed the contract. Then probably a week after the job started, he called me. He said, I didn't really look over the estimate, but can you give me a discount?
Oh, I remember this one.
Yeah. The whole job went south from there. But, the way I handled it was not well. I kind of ignored the problem, and I was like, yeah, let me go and look at my numbers and see what I could do. And then I just kind of let it lie there when I really should have dealt with it and explained, why I can't or why the price is what it is. So we carried on through the job, and it came time to get paid. And he said, I'm not paying this. And it wasn't crazy. It was, I think it was $15,000 for 1 bathroom. And that was full gut, tile shower, custom vanity. It really wasn't that bad. He said, I'm only looking to pay 10 grand. I said, that doesn't even cover anything. So then, we went back and forth a little bit. Long story short, he did not pay the bill, but he had also done some work for me, and I had a bill with him. So we kind of just left it at that.
He was a contractor, or what was he?
He's an HVAC contractor. I still lost some money on the job, but he also lost too. So
right. And so what do you think you could have done differently to protect yourself?
I should have been very upfront and not avoided the problem. I should have explained, as soon as it came up, why the price is what it is. And if at that point he wasn't okay with it, we should have probably walked away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the hardest thing to do is to walk away, when you need the work, you need the money, you need the opportunity, you need the job. And so you make that sacrifice. And I've been there before too, where you need the work, you need the job. And sometimes you take a bite of the wrong side of the apple and you get stung a little bit. You find a fucking hornet inside of it, and it's shitty. But these are part of the life lessons I think that people gather over time. How long have you been doing remodels for now?
I started my business in mid 2023.
You're still pretty fresh. And so for you to have gone through that, I think those are sometimes the lessons that we have to actually physically go through. We want to avoid as many situations as possible, but the psychology there of really understanding, what you should have avoided and the person that you were walking into doesn't come until you've gone through it. I think like somebody can say to you, you should not, do this job. And you're like, well, I need the job. Like it's just a simple conversation. And even your language, I think, is just really, you got to be very cautious with your language and not admitting or accepting that the price is negotiable at that point, especially even since he signed the contract. Like, he technically is in breach of contract. If he paid a deposit, you could have probably just walked away, kept his deposit and said, I've already invested this time. This is where we're at. You're in breach of contract. You're trying to, change how things are after the fact. And so this is a reflection. I mean, Chad's not here right now, but his contract is dialed. And it is detailed. Oh, here he is now. I don't know if he's got his audio on, but his contract is dialed. So, maybe getting that in front of you will help you just protect yourself. But that's a great story, and one that I recall, when we just kind of initially started working together. I think that was early, right around that time when we started working together. Yep. And I remember that guy asking for that shower for free. It's just crazy, especially considering that he's in the fucking trades. For him to ask for something like that is just wild.
It made it worse that it was a friend too.
Yeah. I think friends can be even more of a risk, because they're willing to potentially even take more advantage of you, and so it's shitty, but you only lost a couple thousand. You only paid a couple thousand for those lessons. Yeah. I mean, we can laugh about it now. It isn't hundreds of thousands, fortunately enough. And, I know, so there's many people that have been in that position. I've been in that position as well, where I've lost, a lot of money in similar situations just because of circumstances that, you get yourself into the wrong corner of the room and you're kind of trapped there, unfortunately. So I'm glad you've grown and been able to get through that. But I want to dig into this with somebody else. Who's comfortable going next? Adam, are you good to go next? Cool. So Adam is with 804 Group. He is in Ontario, and he is a boutique remodeling contractor. He's in his beautiful little show. Yeah, he doesn't let you like that. Boutique remodeling contractor. He does some bougie shit. He's not giving himself enough credit. He does some really nice work. He's in his office that he just finished up. He built his little headquarters here, and excited to be working together. Him and I have also been working together for just over a year, and I'm excited to hear what story you've got. Is this a recent story, a previous story? What are you going to share with us today?
Yeah, it is a recent story. I mean, to be honest, that last one was a little jacked up. I mean, I don't know how I handled that one, but kudos to Andrew for making it through that. I mean, for myself personally, this job we just started 2 days ago. We actually worked on winning this tender, if you will, months and months and months ago. We took the clients to previous projects, current projects at the time, and I think that ultimately did help us win the project. But ultimately what it came down to was, budget and pricing and things like that, right? Pretty large scale project. And pretty much what had happened was, we gave them a total price. We broke it down per trade. This is what demo costs. This is what, the bathrooms are going to cost, the tile work, the flooring, the stairs, the XYZ, right? So essentially what they did was, they said, hey, Adam, we want to work with you. We've seen your work. We appreciate the detail that you put into it. You are coming in the most expensive, essentially, but we are willing to pay a little bit of a premium to work with you. Can we work on this, and this? Like, can we, adjust the prices? Can we see what we can do? Obviously for myself, I really wanted the project. They seem like very, very nice people. Like I said, it was a large scale project, full main floor, second floor renovation, couple bathrooms, kitchen, everything involved, right? So usually when we're getting into that stuff, I didn't want to kind of be, no, we're not going to change anything. This is what our price is, so on and so forth. This is what we're worth. So what I said, leave it with me. Let me try to get some of my guys in here. Let me try to get my taper in here. Let me try to get my electrician in here. Let me try to get some guys where, we can bring them in, really show them the scope, what's involved and what we can do, right? So I ended up bringing my trades in. We were able to revise the quote accordingly to, accommodate what they were asking for to a degree. We didn't really get right down to their requested number, but we did what we could. It just took a little bit more effort, if you will, a little bit more work to kind of dial in that number. It wasn't anybody really asking for a discount, right? They were just kind of doing their due diligence in terms of comparing it to other quotes. So I didn't really have any, ill will towards doing it or anything like that. At the end of the day, I was able to bring my trades in and they said, okay, we can do it for this number. Then I'm not eating any money, right? I'm not losing any
Right.
money in that regard, right? So, I mean, it wasn't really an objection from them. It was more of like a request, like, you know, they were doing their due diligence, right? Comparing it to other quotes and stuff like that, saying, you know, you're X amount of dollars higher here. Can we do something? So it just kind of, for me, I just took it that additional step further. We kind of did like a trade revised quote to a degree, not throughout the whole scope of work, but within those, you know, 3 to 4 trades that we needed to kind of massage some numbers on, you know. And I think the lesson is, in my opinion, is you kind of figure out who you can and can't do these things for, because there's a lot of people that'll take advantage of that.
Well, I mean, like what you're talking about that you did, those are things that we talked about early on. And I think, you know, I mean, we don't know. We can't predict the future or you know, anything like that. But hypothetically, let's just say that you didn't do the trade revised quote. Let's just say that you didn't, you know, do all those things. Maybe you wouldn't have got the job. You know, maybe you wouldn't have closed on it. And maybe you would have been, you know, struggling to figure out the language that you need to speak to navigate those projects. The takeaway here is that that's my process. I mean, when I was doing remodels, is I would provide an initial budget. You would have a trigger. The client would see the number. They'd be triggered by the amount typically. And then you would, if they want to move forward, if they like what you're doing, if they like your process, which they obviously did with you, then you enter into a trade revised where you bring the trades through, you review all the quotes, and you work with the trades to navigate, you know, the client's expectations. And I think the takeaway here is that maybe is just part of your process. And so now when you go to your next larger project, you can explain, this is my process. I build out my budget. I build out my proposal. We'll review the numbers face to face. We'll talk about the highs, the lows, the things that you're uncomfortable with. Then after that, I'll take that feedback back to my trades. We'll do a site walkthrough. We'll revise the quote. But in order to do that revised quote, you should charge money for it. So I don't know, did you take a deposit to do that trade revised or no at that point?
I didn't. I know that, you know, especially in our conversations in the past, usually you're signing into a contract before you do that trade revised. Now, if I was doing it for like every trade, sure, I get it. But, you know, again, it was one of those things that, you know, we really wanted the project. Yeah. And I didn't really foresee them kind of taking off.
Way.
Yeah. You know what I mean? At that point, I was already like neck deep into it. So I was like, what the hell is, you know, getting 2 more guys in here to just help me out?
No, I mean, I'm glad you did it. It is what converts, you know, when you do put a lot of energy, time, and resource into proposing these projects. And that's what it comes down to. You know what I mean? Like, let's just say hypothetically you did all that shit and you didn't get the fucking job, and the client came back to you and they're like, hey, you know, we're going to go with this other guy because he's $10,000 cheaper. You know, and crazy story, Tom, I'm dealing with Tom right now as well. He's pretty active in the community. Couldn't get on the call today, but he's got a client. He's wiring a new home, right? The client has 3 quotes. Tom has been communicative, reactive, framed every situation. You know, he's provided all his certificates, all of his insurance, like thorough, detailed quote. And the client still is like indecisive with decisions. And they're like, they said, oh, we're going to make a decision, you know, on Tuesday. This was last night. We're going to make a decision on Tuesday. And so they messaged Tom and they're like, the other contractor asked for an extension till the end of the week. So we're going to give him that. And then we'll go from there. And Tom's just like, why are you acknowledging? Like, why are you even why are you taking this extension? Why are you even playing with that? You know, when the other contractors like Tom has given, you know, everything that you need. And so sometimes that confusion, that psychology that lives within the client and where their head is, you know, it can be overwhelming for us as contractors for sure. So I think you handled that one great. You know, I'm excited to see the photos of that project. I think that's going to be a beautiful one. Is that the one with the curved staircase? I think I saw a reel the other day. Yeah, cool. That'll be nice. Awesome.
Hey, we've got an ad here. Make sure to pay attention. What's up, guys? Are you a contractor or business owner looking to take things to the next level? Well, I've got something for you. The Elite Builder Society is a community that helps contractors grow and scale. For $49 a month, you can have access to 20 group coaching calls. Look, you're probably wondering, how am I going to show up to 20 calls, Brandon? That's a lot. And yeah, it is a lot for $49 a month. But every call is recorded so you can watch it at your leisure. But you get the best experience when you're live on the call with us. Okay, at the end of every webinar, there will be a Q&A where you can ask the industry expert questions that you can implement into your business. Look, if you're ready to take things to the next level for $49 a month, go to ebsworks.com and register today. I look forward to seeing you inside the community.
Okay, Chad or James. Chad, how's your audio? You got your audio dialed in? Are you good to go?
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yes, sir.
Sure, I'll go. So this one was a kitchen bathroom that we worked on. It was a returning customer, and everything was planned out. We were going to do the kitchen and the bathroom at the same time. So I got all the trades and everybody extra help to do the job. So when we opened up the walls, there was mold. The wiring was old wiring tied into new wiring. It was just a mess. It was an old farmhouse. And so we started with the change orders, and between all of the change orders and some of the subs not showing up, the job just drug on forever, it seemed like. And the customers, they were very patient and understanding, but the biggest thing was being unorganized and trying to keep up with the change orders, because now that we opened up the wall, well, they wanted to do this, and then they wanted to move the island a little bit farther out. So, of course, they were good friends of mine, and they're like, well, can you do this? I'm like, sure, yeah, that's fine. So I would take notes, and next thing you know, I'm lost in change orders. So I'm trying to figure out how to bill and, jump on plumbing because the plumber didn't show up. And then, we had an electrical issue that it was tied into the other room. So I had to jump off of that, and it was just, I felt like I was scrambling, and it was just total chaos. But I think the thing that I learned most about this was really being organized. I thought I was pretty well organized, but it wasn't. It was total chaos. But when you and I started working together, the biggest thing was, one of the main things was getting organized and creating the systems so you don't have these problems.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing that helped me was going around and getting a 2 and a 3-man deep list of all the different trades that I need. And, since that time, I've vetted a lot of good guys, and I've had to kind of knock off some not so good guys. They would show up and then do a little bit of work, and then they wouldn't show back up for a day or two.
It's challenging where you are. Like you're in Connorsville, Indiana, right?
Yes.
A small rural town. Whereas Adam, he's up in Ontario, and there's an overload of trades. So, you can really pick. You can pick, and once you start finding these, there's more people scrambling to do better. I think in a small little rural community, like you're really struggling with just finding a finishing carpenter. Finding a finishing carpenter is hard.
Yes.
That's crazy to think, where Adam probably has, a lineup of finishing carpenters, and he gets to pick between which one's going to show up, which one's price is outrageous, which one does great. I know Adam does a lot of his own finishing, but the point is like, Adam's tile guy is phenomenal. Right. And for you to find the phenomenal tile guy is next to impossible. And so, trying to meet your client's expectations with kind of shit is fucking hard.
Right. Because you're pretty much, you have your hands tied from the get-go, because, you're kind of hoping and praying that these guys that have already committed to the job, that they show up. We're about an hour and a half southeast of Indianapolis, and most of the bigger cities, they're 45 minutes to an hour away. They'll come, but they're going to be a lot higher just because of travel time. So that puts me back to square one. So what I've been doing is going around the surrounding counties and talking with the lumber yards, and just kind of talking with different people that I know, hey, who do you use for drywall? Who do you use, and doing all of that, that's helped me create that list. And a lot of the guys that I've talked to, they're in the same boat that we are, because it's hard to find help for one, and it's also hard to find the specific trades that you need, because there's not a lot of options to choose from. That's just the way it is right now. Yeah, we got done with the job, and the customers, they were so happy that everything turned out, and they understood all the change orders. So it wasn't like a big thing that they wasn't going to pay, but I had to do a lot of homework based on all of my notes and pictures of things, because we use CompanyCam as well. And if it wasn't for CompanyCam, we would have probably omitted several things that we did that I might have not charged for.
Like, do you think you lost from, maybe not having, because you didn't have job tread on that job, did you?
No, I didn't. I think I was using Jobber at that time, but it was just a basic thing. It wasn't as involved as
Right.
what JobTread is, but I probably lost a couple $1,000s. It wasn't a huge hit, but at the time it was, because there was this,
No, for sure.
But
well, I mean, the cool thing is you've gathered some skills and abilities, and this is good information for anybody who's in a small town, surrounding areas. Some of the things that we talked about with Chad was that he has to build a trades list. He has to have kind of a tier 1, 2, 3 painter, tier 1, 2, 3 drywaller, tier 1, 2, 3 plumber, and those tiers are based on do they respond to text messages or calls? Do they respond to emails? Do they communicate? If all three of them don't, well, then you're down to, the first guy who's kind of responsive. And, unfortunately, that's kind of what Chad's dealing with. So, yeah, small counties, definitely reach out to all the surrounding towns, reach out to the place that sells the goods is generally connected to the guys that do the work. We were in a small little town. Me and my son, he was there for a hockey tournament or something like that. And same principle is hockey bag, the zipper broke. If we didn't have a zipper, then the equipment and shit would be flying out of the truck. So we had to find someone local to fix the zipper. And so what we did was I called the fabric store and then found somebody that was working from home that they suggested would do it. Then I contacted that person, they fixed the zipper, and he was just so impressed. He's like, how could you find somebody that's who works from their house? And it's like, well, you just have to go to the place where they're buying the stuff. If you go to the place where the person's buying the stuff, like Adam, for example, if he was trying to find his tile contractor and you had to reverse engineer how to find him, go to the place that sells the material and ask the place that sells the material, hey, who's your best guy? Because the guy who's installing whatever product it may be is probably connected to the place that's buying that has the material, right? And so, that's kind of what you've done in a roundabout way, Chad, is you've reverse engineered trying to figure out where these guys are located. I mean, it's shitty because it's tough when people are going to Lowe's and Home Depot and those kind of stores, because you're not going to necessarily find great contractors at Lowe's or Home Depot, or Menards. And so,
Right.
It makes it a little bit more challenging. But those specialty stores, if you can go to those specialty stores and look for trades, that'll help you. That was a good story. James, so background, James is a drywall contractor. He's also in Ontario, small rural. I think he's in a smaller rural community. So he would work with, several remodeling companies and builders and other type of contractors like that. But, James and I have been working together for just over 6 months now. Yeah, it's just over 6 months, I think now. And I'm curious, what story do you got, James, for us today?
Well, so the only thing that really pops out to mind, other than me getting ghosted constantly, which we're working on. I had a client who was going through a major renovation, and their contractor had brought in some drywall contractors anyways. And the story was they would just come, show up, do a bit of work.
Some other drywall contractors?
Yeah.
Okay.
So their GC was bringing in whoever it was. And
Right.
then they would show up, do a little bit of work, and take off for the rest of the day. And eventually, after about a month, they got fed up, and they'd seen my truck driving past their house constantly. So they gave me a shout, and I stopped in, took a look, and then figured out what the problem was.
The homeowner gave you a shout, or the
Yeah.
GC?
No, the
homeowner gave you a shout. Okay.
So, and they ended up firing that crew. And their objection originally was the price. My pricing was way over what they were paying these people.
Right, because you originally got to price this job?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I told her for what had to be done, I would just do an hourly rate for her, and she kind of blew her mind what it would be. But that was the main objection. And then what I did was I just walked through the house. They weren't happy with any of the work, the timing. So I explained to her our process and how I would fix what they've done. And they thought over it. It took a day or two, and then she ended up calling me back and said, yeah, come on, go ahead and take care of it. So then about a week went by. We went in there, prepped the whole place, just my brother and I. We went in, started fixing everything. And then the funny story was her husband came home that night, said, holy shit, how many guys did they have here? And she told him, no, just the two. And he said, wow, they got more done in one day than the other guys did in a week. So, yeah. But anyways, it turned out great. She's used me again since then.
Mm-hmm.
And
what about that GC?
I don't know. Apparently it was a friend of hers, and never heard of him. Don't know who he was.
Oh, he was never there.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had problems with that as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sometimes it comes down to, the price reflects the outcome, and so sometimes when we're trying to share the outcome, when we're trying to paint that picture so that the client has that visual understanding so that they can make that investment, they can take that leap, It just requires a little bit more of a thorough, explanation, just like what you had to do there, just like what Adam had to do. You have to sometimes just go and be a lot more thorough. And I talk about this quite a bit in our discovery sessions when we're having our, these meetings with these customers. I think what's really important is we ask as many questions as possible, and we can figure out like what is the contributing connected factor to this client's, problem, whatever it might be. And in this scenario, James, your client obviously was completely dissatisfied with the previous guy that did all the work. I think you were talking, when was this job?
About a year and a half ago.
Okay, so before we were talking together, there was a job that you were working on where there was like 14 boxes of mud in a small little area. I think it was like a stairwell that you were working on. It was just a fucking disaster.
Absolutely.
No, but I think like what it comes down to, the lessons learned for a lot of these situations is just ask more questions, be more organized, and be as effective in your communication so that the client really understands the value that you're delivering. These are great scenarios, and I think a lot of us deal with client objections all the time. Price, or we're waiting for another quote or whatever it might be. I think really what should differentiate you from your competitors is your system. You're not trying to sell your system to someone. You want them to buy whatever it is that you're selling. And if you can change the narrative so that you're not trying to sell yourself to them, instead they're buying it from you, I think we'll all close more opportunities. Does anybody else want to share anything more, about lessons learned, life, whatever, anything? Open mic. As a different approach, we wanted to try something a little bit different, on trying to really get contractors a little bit more in control. We have to really understand that we are in control of every decision, every opportunity, and every lost opportunity as well. And so, does anybody want to share something, James?
Sure. Yeah, I'll share quote I just put out yesterday. Actually, client contacted me through Google. And after contacting a few other people, I was the only one to call back. And with the framework that we've been working on, I laid out the plans for, having the contract and estimate to her within 24 hours. Yeah. And which I delivered on and laid out the next steps. Yeah, I did lock in the job.
Nice. Sometimes that's also what it's just about, is just answering your fucking phone. Yeah. Like if you're trying to win a project and you don't answer your phone, how are you supposed to get the opportunity? There's all these AI tools too that can answer the phone for you, and I just don't know if that's the right move just yet. Like, I think that it's coming. I just don't know. I think that when you integrate some of those AI tools, I think you give up a percentage of leads. Like, I feel like you're going to naturally just give up a percentage of leads. And I think, answer the phone, frame when the estimate or the proposal is going to be put in front of the client, so they can just believe that you've done this shit before. You're not just willy-nilly throwing this stuff together. You've got a structure and a plan. And I think, hopefully that's what helped you get that job. And hopefully that's what helps you continue to get more jobs.
What's up, guys? I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Onsite Podcast. So here's the deal. We want to grow this show and we need your help. It's simple. Pay the tax, share the show. That's it. Let's get back into it.
Adam, I think you wanted to share something as well. You had your mic off there.
I think it was just kind of piggybacking off what you were saying previously in terms of sometimes clients need to go through some bullshit with a bad contractor to understand the value that us as good contractors will give them, whether it's communication, whether it's value in different ways aside from price.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, there's a lot of people out there they don't even look at your estimate, the body of it. They're just looking at that bottom line number.
Yeah.
I've personally grown over the last little while to understand that those are not my clients. Mm-hmm. If you're just looking for a bottom line number and you're not going to really understand what's involved from A to Z, you're not my client. Because we provide
I think you can take it to another level too. I think like you can don't even give them the number. That's part of the framing of the situation, is controlling yourself enough, having enough confidence that you just don't give that number out to everyone. They don't all get it.
Well, I'll be completely transparent. Like when I first started, I was giving detailed estimates to everybody. Didn't matter how small or large the job was. Everybody got a detailed estimate. They got a breakdown right from demo to cleaning. I stopped doing that. Essentially what I do now, depending on the scope of the job, like let's just say a bathroom, somebody wants to do their ensuite. Essentially what I'll do is we'll have a meeting, let me know what you want. I'll take all that information and then I tell them like, look, essentially what we do is I will text or email you a price. This is where we're going to be based on everything that you want to do. If you're good with that number, from there, what I'll do is I will give you a detailed breakdown of everything that's included, from demo to electrical to plumbing to waterproofing to tile to drywall, taping, everything, vanity, accessory install, custom glass, whatever it is. You will get a detailed breakdown of everything, because as you know, James mentioned, there's a lot of ghosting out there. The amount of times I spend 2-3 hours typing out a quote or an estimate and send it off to somebody, they don't read the page and a half, 2 pages of information. They just look at the number. You never hear back from them. So that's just me personally. That's kind of the approach that I've kind of taken. Obviously, for the larger scale projects, you know, the 6-figure projects and stuff like that, you're going to spend obviously a little bit more time. You're going to be a little bit more detailed and thorough with those. But there's a lot of people out there that are just kicking tires. And I have personally wasted too much time quoting things to not even garner a response. I understand that, you know, we're not going to win every job that we quote, but at least have the decency to say, hey, Adam, you know, that's a little bit out of our budget. We don't think we'd be able to, you know, work within your with your company, but we appreciate your time. If I got
I'm gonna throw you a different option for you to. This is for everyone to think about. There is several different ways to approach these situations, and this is one that I think takes a lot of confidence, a lot of understanding, and a lot of foresight. And so when you're in that initial discovery, looking at whatever the job is that you formulated that one price on, I like that you do the one price. I think the one price thing is great, but I think that part can actually be discussed almost in the discovery. So let's just say hypothetically we're looking at doing a main floor remodel, whatever it might be, right? We walk in, we have some rapport building with the client, talk a little bit about the project and like what they want to do, you know, and then we talked about that kind of that information booklet that the client would then review while you're gathering your information. You come back to them and then you have a little bit of a powwow and you're like, okay, cool. I've got, you know, some measurements. I got some understanding. Let's talk a little bit more about, you know, the project. And this is where we ask as many freaking questions as humanly possible. I think we ask them, you know, why are we doing this? What's the timeline? What's the urgency? What's the why behind it? What are some things that we're fixated on? Do we want stone or do we care about the cabinets? Like what? And then you're gauging person's reactions. You know, the wife might be like, I want a built-in oven. Like whatever they fixate on, right? They're going to fixate on an area. The man's going to fixate on an area. The woman's going to fixate on an area. And so once we understand that, then we can start digging in, asking more questions, determining what is the real true why. Right. And then at some point we have to ask them, what's your budget? You know, do you have a budget or an investment set aside? I really think that we have to ask. This is really hard to do for a lot of people. And I totally get it. And if you're not comfortable doing it, it's totally fine. But when you ask that, when you frame that, you know, what are you comfortable investing in this project? And they're like, well, that's why you're here. Totally get it. This project could be anywhere between $100,000 to $300,000. Like you frame a narrative for them and they're like, holy shit, you know, we don't want to spend 300,000, you know, then, you know, they're budget sensitive. But if they're like, well, you know, like definitely want it to be premium. Okay. So you're comfortable spending a little bit more because there's more premium options. And so navigating that portion so you can understand where they're at, I think is really, really critical. Then what you do is you go back to the drawing board when you're building that single figured number and you say, you know what, these are the items we discussed. There's some areas where we could go up. There's some areas where we could come down, but I think that we'll land in this range. You could give them a range, you know, and if you want to proceed with this range, next steps would be we do a trade revised proposal where we bring the trades in, we identify all the individual tasks. And then in order for us to do that, we have to take a deposit because we want to make sure that the trades feel confident that they're not going to be wasting their time. So it's a small little deposit. It applies to the project, $2,500, $5,000, whatever it might be, depending on the size of the job. But then after the trades come, okay, you've got lots of time invested in this at this point, right? You're building a relationship with the client. That's the majority of what's happening in this moment is you're building a relationship with the client so that they can feel confident with your decision-making approach on the people that you pick, the process that you're going to approach, the style that you're going to approach. Then you build out this detailed proposal. And so this is where I think some people also, you know, could go a different way. I think a lot of people just send the quote and hope for the best. Now, when I am trying to review a quote from somebody else and I don't understand what I'm reviewing, I'm just interpreting everything that's in there. And so I'm misinterpreting things inside of that. I'm misinterpreting proposals. And I think another approach would be that you print out a copy for the client, you print out a copy for yourself, you bring a red pen to site to the client's home, you've scheduled this meeting to review the trade revised proposal, and then you identify each line, right? You carry maybe the higher number. So the number at the end is just not even, it's outrageous number. And you can just say right off the bat, like, the number's calculated by all of these different tasks, so it's misinformed. We just want to make sure that you have clarity on each one of these lines and we're comfortable making this investment on these lines. And then you review the scope of work. You know, do you want to change this? Do you want to change that? You make those subtle adjustments, and then you go back one more time to the drawing board with those adjustments. And you say, okay, we've finalized the estimate. We finalized the proposal after the trades. Everyone's come through. We've talked about it. You've had now 3 visits with the customer. They have checked off boxes. They've shown every red flag possible. And then you put the proposal in front of them with all of this detailed information. The number is dictated by their decisions. And so when they come back to you and they're like, well, you know, now the quote's a little bit too high. Okay, well, you know, like, these are things that we discussed. You know, these are things that you've acknowledged that you want to change. You were familiar with the price at that point. You know, where do we need to be in order for you to feel comfortable? And like, oh, we got to come down to whatever it might be. At this point, they're so invested in the process and they're so familiar with the project that they will work with you. They will navigate with you on what needs to be done. And so, you know, I think the message here that I'm trying to say is, like, just don't send an estimate via email with hopes and dreams, because, you know, that is a fear. And I'm not saying you're doing this or anyone's doing this, Adam, in here. When you send an estimate off, because it's easier to hope that the client will interpret your approach and your process, there's a big chance you're going to lose the job, because, you know, you're not there to validate their concerns about why you're the right guy for the job. And so there's lots of different ways to do this. I think that the way is whatever you're comfortable with, and understanding that there's always a better way. There's always a way we can always improve. There's always a path forward. There's always opportunity for growth. And so that's my takeaway with that. Does anybody want to wrap this up? Share one last message before we kill this episode? All right. Okay, well, thanks, everyone. It was a fun episode, a little different. So this is part 5 of 8. We will be digging into why the follow-up is leadership. And so that'll be the next episode 6. But this has been fun. Appreciate all of you for taking the time out of your day to tune in. Have a great week. Cheers. See ya. Thanks.
All right, that concludes this episode of the Onsite Podcast. Remember, if you enjoyed this episode, please pay the tax, share the show. Guys, if you want to be a part of the Elite Builder Society, all you got to do is pay $49 a month. That's it. $49 a month. You get 20 group coaching calls every month. Okay? Go to ebsworks.com and register today. If you enjoyed the show, please pay the tax and share the show.